I've been asked to read to you, so I'll do that. Oh, that's gone now. And this book, you're like, I haven't read it before. I've just finished Dragon, and the Japanese, they were sneaky. They put in nuclear devices in air conditioning in cars, shipped them to America, and we're going to detonate them around America and create an electromagnetic field and shut off all their power. However, Dirk Pitt, he set off an atomic bomb underneath the water, just short of their secret hideout, and he destroyed their command centre. It was a nuclear bomb left over from 1945. Yeah, so that was all sorted out. And I've got to see if I can read now. There it is there. Let you read it. So this is Sahara. April the 2nd, I can't see that because I've seen light. April the 2nd, 1865, Richmond, Virginia. There's water for my vocal cords. April the 2nd, 1865, Richmond, Virginia. She seemed to float above the ghostly evening mist like a menacing beast rising from the primeval ooze. Her low silhouette, I can never spell that silhouette, stood black and ominous against the backdrop of the trees along the shoreline. Shadowy, phantom-like images of men moved across her decks under the eerie yellow glow of lanterns, as moisture trickled down her grey sloping sides and dripped into the sluggish current of the James River. Making it too dramatic, aren't I? The Texas tugged at her dockside mooring line as impatiently as a hound about to be bound, now unleashed, for the hunt. Thick iron shutters covered her gun ports, and the 6-inch armour on her casement showed no markings. Only a white and red battle ensign atop the mast behind her smokestack, hanging limp in the dark and damp atmosphere, signified her as a warship of the Confederate States Navy. Is it dark? Yeah, evening mist. To landsmen, I did that, I read it wrong. To landsmen she looked squat and ugly, but to sailors there was a character and grace about her that was unmistakable. She was tough and she was deadly, the last of her peculiar design that set sail on a cruise to extinction after a brief but enduring burst of glory. Commander Mason Toome stood on the foredeck, pulled a blue bandana from a pocket, and dabbed at the dampness that seeped inside the collar of his uniform. That's good, because you won't get much moisture seeped in by a banana, would you? The loading was going slow, too slow. The Texas would need every minute of available darkness for her escape to the open sea. He watched anxiously as his crew swore and strained while they manhandled wooden crates across a gangplank and down an open hatch on the deck. The crates seemed unusually heavy, for containing the written records of the 4-year-old government. No one's reading it. They came from mule-drawn wagons deployed near the dock that were strongly guarded by the battle-weary survivors of a Georgia infantry company. Where are we again? 1865. Toombs turned uneasy eye towards Richmond. Squint. Only 2 miles to the south. Not to a sailor on a ship, okay. Only 2 miles to the south. Grant had broken Lee's stubborn defence of Petersburg, and now the battered army of the south was retreating towards Appomattox, and abandoning the Confederate capital to the advancing Union forces. The evacuation was underway, and the city was filled with confusion as riots and pillaging swept the streets. Explosions shook the ground, flames burst into the night as warehouses and arsenals filled with supplies of war were put to the torch. Toombs was ambitious and energetic, which I was, one of the finest naval officers in the Confederacy. Oh, you should ask me, have you got much energy? I said, well, I can't actually walk anywhere. I don't have any energy, so I don't know. Where was I? Oh yeah, Toombs was ambitious and energetic, one of the finest naval officers in the Confederacy. He was a short, handsome-faced man with brown hair and eyebrows. Always good to have eyebrows. A thick red beard, brown hair, okay, and a flinty look in his olive black eyes. Commander of small gunboats at the battles of New Orleans and Memphis, a gunnery officer on board the fighting ironclad Arkansas, and first officer of the infamous Sea Raider Florida. Toombs had proved a dangerous man for the Union cause. He had assumed, never assume, command of the Texas, especially command, of the Texas only a week after she was completed at the Rockets Naval Yard in Richmond, having demanded and supervised a number of modifications in preparation for an almost impossible voyage downriver past 1,000 Union guns. He turned his attention back to his handkerchief. There's already. Cargo, loading as the last wagon pulled away from the deck and disappeared into the night. It's also left the dock as well. He slipped his watch from a pocket, opened the lid and held up a face toward a lantern that hung on a dock piling. Sort of make it dramatic, aren't I? It read 8:20, so it could have been dark. Little more than 8 hours left before daylight. It was dark. That's right then. Not enough time to run the last 20 miles of the gauntlet under the cloak of darkness. An open carriage pulled by a team of dappled horses rolled up and stopped beside the dock. The driver sat stiffly without turning as the two passengers watched the final few crates being loaded through the hatch. The heavy man in civilian clothes, slouched tardily by the other, who was wearing an officer's naval uniform, spied Toombs and waved. Toombs stepped across the plank onto the deck, approached the carriage and saluted smartly. I'm not doing... no, I'll just read it. An honour, Admiral, Mr. Secretary. I don't think either of you would have time for a farewell. Admiral Raphael Semes, looks like two E's, Semez, famed for his exploits, moving on then. I'll read it. Famed for his exploits as captain of the Confederate Seawolf Alabama and now commander of the James River squadron of ironclad gunboats, nodded and smiled through a heavily waxed moustache and a small goatee protruding beneath his lower lip. A regiment of Yankees couldn't have kept me from seeing you off. Did make sense. Stephen Mallory, Secretary of the Confederate States Navy, stretched out a hand. Too much is riding on you for us not to take the time to wish you luck. I have a stout ship and a brave crew, said Toombs with confidence. We'll break through. Sames, never heard that name before. Sames' smile faded, and his eyes filled with foreboding. If you find it impossible, you must burn and scuttle the ship in the deepest part of the river so that our archives can never be salvaged by the Union. The charges are in place and primed. Be hurries, Toombs assured Sames. The bottom hull will be blown away, dropping the weighted crates in the river mud while the ship continues a safe distance away under full steam before sinking. Mallory nodded. A sound plan. The two men in the carriage exchanged strange and knowing looks. An awkward moment passed. Just one. Then Sam said, I'm sorry to lay another burden on your shoulders at the last minute, but you will also be responsible for a passenger. Passenger? Repeated Toombs grimly. No one who values his life, I trust. He has no choice in the matter, Mallory muttered. Where is he? Toombs demanded, gazing around the deck. We're almost ready to cast off. He will arrive shortly, replied Semmes. May I ask who he is? You will recognise him almost immediately and very easily, said Mallory, and pray the enemy also identifies him should you need to put him on display. I don't understand. Mallory smiled for the first time. You will, my boy, you will. A piece of information you might find useful, said Sams, changing the subject. My spies report that our former ironclad ram, the Atlanta, captured last year by Yankee monitors, has been pressed into service by the Union Navy and is patrolling the river above Newport News. I reckon he's got a hostage. Toombs brightened. Yes, I see. Since the Texas has the same general shape and approximate dimensions, she could be mistaken for the Atlanta in the dark. Semmes nodded and handed him a folded flag. The Stars and Stripes. You'll need it for the masquerade. Toombs took the Union banner and held it under one arm. I'll have to run it up the mast shortly before we reach the Union artillery emplacements at Trent's Reach. Then good luck to you, said Semmes. Sorry we can't stay to see you cast off, but the Secretary has a train to catch and I have to return to the fleet and oversee its destruction before the Yankees are upon us. The Secretary of the Confederate Army, Navy even, shook Toombs' hand once more. The blockade runner Fox is standing by off Bermuda to recall your bunkers for the next leg of your voyage. Good luck to you and fortune, Commander. The salvation of the Confederacy is in your hands. Before Toombs could reply, the narrator, whatever, took a sip of water. Before Toombs could reply, Mallory ordered the carriage driver to move on. Toombs raised his hand in a final salute and stood there, his mind failing to comprehend the Secretary's farewell. Salvation of the Confederacy? The words made no sense. The war was lost. With Sherman moving north from the Carolinas and Grant surging south through Virginia like a tidal wave, Lee would be caught between the Union pincers and forced to surrender in a matter of days. Jefferson Davis would soon be broken from President of the Confederate States to a common fugitive. And within a few short hours, the Texas had every expectation of being the last ship of the Confederate Navy to die a watery death. Where was the salvation should the Texas make good her escape? Toombs failed to fathom a vague answer. I don't know what happened either. His orders were to transport the government's archives to a neutral port of his choosing and remain out of sight until contacted by courier. How could the successful smuggling of bureaucratic records possibly prevent the certain defeat of the South? His thoughts were interrupted by his first officer, Lieutenant Ezra Craven. The loading is completed and the cargo stored, sir, announced Craven. Shall I give the order to cast off? Toombs turned. Not yet. We have to take on a passenger. Craven, a big Scotsman, spoke with a peculiar... That's what they did, wasn't it? Spoke with a peculiar combination of brogue and southern drawl. He'd better make it damned quick. His chief engineer O'Hara ready to get underway. His engines were full head of steam, and the gun crews manning their stations. We'll stay buttoned up until we meet the Federal fleet. We can't afford to lose a gun and crew from a lucky shot through a port beforehand. The men won't take kindly to turning the cheek. Tell them they'll live longer. Both men swung and stared through the... whatever it says. Both men swung. Both men swung and stared toward the shore at the sound of approaching hoofs. 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 A second later, a Confederate officer rode out the darkness and onto the deck. One of you, Commander Toombs. No, that's wrong. I got it wrong. Because only after reading the next bit, I read this ways. One of you, Commander Toombs. He asked in a tired voice. I'm Toombs, he said, stepping forward. The rider swung down from his horse and saluted. He was covered with road dust and looked exhausted. My compliments, sir. Captain Neville Brown, in charge of the escort for your prisoner. Did say mine. Sound like a hostage, yeah. Prisoner, Toombs echoed. I was told he was a passenger. Treat him as you will, Brown shrugged indifferently. Where is he? Toombs asked for the second time that night. Immediately behind, I rode out in advance of my party to warn him not to be alarmed. Is the man daft? Muttered Craven. Alarmed or what? we're getting to a break. His question was answered by reading the next section correctly. His question was answered as a closed coach tumbled rumbled even onto the dock, surrounded by a detachment of riders dressed in the blue uniform of Union cavalry. Toombs was on the verge of shouting for his crew to run out the guns and repel boarders when Captain Brown calmly reassured him. "Rest easy, Commander. They're good southern boys. Dressing up like Yankees was the only way we could pass through Union lines." Two of the men dismounted and opened the door of the coach and helped the passenger through the door. A very tall, gaunt man with a familiar beard stepped tiredly to the wooden planking of the dock. He wore manacles that were attached by chains to his wrists and ankles. He studied the ironclad for a moment through solemn eyes, and then turned and nodded at Toombs and Craven. "Good evening, gentlemen," he spoke in a voice pitched slightly high. "Am I to assume I'm to enjoy the hospitality of the Confederate Navy?" Toombs did not reply. He could not reply. He stood there rooted with Craven in blank... He stood there rooted with Craven in blank disbelief. Their expressions matched in total mystification. "My God," Craven finally muttered. "If you're a fake, sir, you're a good one." "No," the prisoner replied. "I assure you I am the genuine article." "How is this possible?" Toombs asked, completely unprepared. Brown remounted his horse. "There's no time for an explanation. I have to lead my men across the river over the Richmond Bridge before it is blown up. It is your responsibility now." "What am I supposed to do with him?" Toombs demanded. "Keep him confined on board your ship until you receive orders for his release. That's all I've been told to pass on." "This is crazy." "So is war, Commander," Brown said over his shoulder, as he spurred his horse and rode off, followed by a small detachment disguised as Union cavalry. There was no more time, no more interruptions to delay the Texas's voyage to hell. Toombs turned to Craven. "Lieutenant, escort our passenger to my quarters and tell Chief Engineer O'Hare to send a mechanic to remove the manacles. I won't die as the commander of a slave ship." The bearded man smiled at Toombs. "Thank you, Commander. I'm grateful for your kindness." "Do not thank me," said Toombs grimly. "By sun-up, we'll all be introducing ourselves to the devil." I don't know who he is now. I can't read more because I'm tired out. So that's that then. That's the first few pages of that book, In Darkness. I don't know what happens, I don't know.